So we'll see who pops on and join us. So welcome to our Salon Jedi session of In the Salon With, our podcast session. And today we are in the salon with Karine Jackson. So let me give you a little introduction before we welcome Karine. And guys that have joined us, feel free to type in and say hello. Welcome Karine to our show today. So Karine is a salon owner. So she has had her salon in Covent Garden in London for 17 years now, I believe. She has been the president of the Fellowship of British Hairdressing and the Chancellor as well, I believe. London Hairdresser of the Year winner at the British Hairdressing Awards. Hair Trend, Most Wanted, beautiful image. The Hair Trend winner at Most Wanted Awards. 3 times nominated as colour expert at the Most Wanted Awards. Basically a huge string of awards and creative work behind Karine as well. And known for the Queen of Sustainability and the first London salon to be accredited that, certified as sustainable, I believe, as well. So welcome to our podcast, Karine. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
You are very, very welcome. And you're a vegan, organic, sustainable, etc. But you're also a big advocate for our apprentices. So the apprentices and the young ones that are coming into the salon, I know that you back that a lot as well. And we have a lot of our guys saying hello to you here in the chat. What I'd like to do, Karine, if it's okay with you, I would like to learn more about Karine Jackson and going back to how you got into hairdressing. How about taking us back? How did you end up getting into hairdressing? Is it something that you always wanted to do?
It is something I always wanted to do. And I suppose it might have started, my dad's brother, in Australia, they have barber shops in the back of sports stores. And my uncle had a chain of sports stores, and, you know, it's a sporting country. And my dad used to take me down there and sit me on the bench, and I'd watch my uncle cutting hair, serving customers, and my dad would be chatting away to him. And I found that really fascinating. So I got my first job at 13 with a small salon. And then my parents actually bought a salon, and that's where I started my career at 15. I think it's the only thing I ever wanted to do, and they knew that. And I was just fortunate enough that, you know, my mum really wanted to be a hairdresser, but was forced to go to uni and become an accountant and everything else, which was unusual, I think, back then. To do that, but my nana was really insistent that she got, you know, that's what she had to do. So I think part of my mum was living through me a little. But that's pretty much where it started, in a very small town in Australia called Wollongong, which is right on the coast. It's beautiful. By the time I was 20, I'd saved up enough money. I'd worked 2 jobs, and that was it. I was off to see the world. And when I got to London, I'd found my home for now. Yeah, my hairdressing home, I'm going to call it.
Okay. Yeah. So tell us about that. When you got there, were you already qualified, or did you go through training? So you were qualified?
I was fully qualified, and I worked for a chain company at the city. So we did mostly lawyers. It was right opposite the law courts. So that was good experience because they were quite particular about how they wanted their hair. Worked with a bunch of amazing people. Actually, one of them is still my closest friend now, Margot. She's flipped from hairdressing she still does a bit of that, but she works in film out in Australia, working for Fox Studios and Channel 9 and things like that. So we worked together, and we always had big dreams of what our careers were going to be and things like that. So
what was your dream?
I actually wanted to be British Hairdresser of the Year. At the time, Beverly hadn't won, so there was no female winner, but then Beverly went on to win. So and then Antoinette. But I had the big dream of that's what I want to do. But my career took a different path. I went to work with Charles Worthington's after that, which I loved, with Carolyn Newman and Michelle and Sam and Adam Reed. And we just had an amazing time. We worked really hard and we played really hard and we traveled everywhere, and we were constantly working but enjoying it, doing all the shows, Fashion Week, where, we worked on Julian McDonald and Betty Jackson, and I'm trying to think of all the people that we worked on. There were so many of them. And so that was really exciting. And then through Charles Worthington's training was out of this world. Charles was on top. He was winning British Hairdresser of the Year. It was a great place to work. But I got to a point where I thought, I want to do this for myself. I think having a family that always had businesses, it was in me to start my own. Yeah. I think now, because I wasn't thinking when I opened in the West End. I just, that was where I'd worked for 12 years, and that's where I wanted to open. So that's what I did.
And how long had you been in hairdressing before you opened the salon? So how many years experience did you?
20. I started at 15 and I opened at 33. So yeah, trying to do the maths. 18 years. Yeah.
Okay, so have you been 17 years, Covent Garden? Has it been the same location the whole time?
Or it has. No, it's been the same location. Yeah.
Okay. How is that opening in London? I mean, when looking from the outside in, I don't know, but I have looked at property prices, for rental, etc., in London before, and I can imagine Covent Garden. And I think, how can a salon survive and make good profits in London when it seems to be so expensive? Which, of course, then the pricing would have to match, to make it profitable. But from someone, I'm up in Inverness in the Highlands of Scotland, it's going to be very different, the cost of a premises. But even being in the Highlands of Scotland, there will be key sites. So, for example, in the shopping centres are way more expensive. And, I just don't, even in shopping centres, I don't know what the business model is that makes them survive and be profitable. What's your thoughts on that? Is it as expensive, or?
Well, I'm going to go back to the start of it. Again, I was very naive, and that's where I wanted to be. I thought it was the coolest place and all of that. Of course, I did all my maths and sums, and I was like, in this big dream that, by the first year I'll be turning over 1.5 million. Of course, in reality, that does not happen. But I did have my costs. I understood my costs, and I think that is number one. Getting a property in central London. Back in the I was at the very early noughties, 2003. So things were different. London was buzzy. People came in. If you had something that was slightly different, they wanted to come to you. I won London Hairdresser pretty quickly into the start of my business, which saved me from the first recession. And I'm constantly changing how I run the business. Right now, I'm on another course I've done 3 courses in the last year, actually. And for any women entrepreneurs out there, one of them was, Vital Voices. And I think I've done Salon Jedi as well, but getting involved with people that aren't just the industry, people that can give you ideas from other places and support you. And then any industry training that comes along, I'm the first to say yes. You could always learn something new about your business, about how you run things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was very fortunate as well. And it's not fortunate because I think I'm very quick at picking up on something that's really good. I had a client who has had cancer. She's just gone through a second round of cancer. This was 15 years ago, and she asked me to look into something that wasn't into colour, that wasn't as harmful, and that sent me on my sustainable journey. And it started with just changing brands, and then I started looking everything in the salon, and this became, a lot of people were saying, why are you doing that? You're not locked in with a big brand, or I don't need it. This is my business. I'm attracting people for who I am and what I believe in. You don't have to follow everybody. You don't have to be tied down. Because 15 years on, it's now everyone's like, and even big companies are like, how can we change this, Karine? What should we be doing here? And just developing the business organically is excuse the pun, but that's exactly what I've done, and it attracts a different genre of clients each time. You know, right now we've been doing perming for about 5 years, and I love it. I read it in the paper. The perm is back. I think I've been making a mint off perming for the last 5 years because nobody else in London was doing it.
Yeah.
And you know, people want textured hair down here. It's where it's at. So I have been very fortunate to be able to see key USPs in the business and
It's
go from there.
interesting. I was going to ask you about the sustainability side, but it's interesting. There's a couple of lessons there and exactly what you're saying. Like, number one, the first thing that stands out is that you've said that looking outside of the industry, that's something that I always do and I've always done. So I look outside of the industry. And one of mine that I did many years ago that saved me from the recession at the time was the whole online traffic, because we weren't getting any footfall through our door. We're like, you know, back street at the time. There was no footfall, but I thought, well, hold on, what about online traffic? And I had to look outside of the industry to get that knowledge. So it's definitely key. And like you say, you've got to believe in the journey of what you're doing, because at the time, as you're saying, it wasn't on trend. Yes, there would be a genre of people who would have had that interest, but not like it is now, where it's very much on trend to be sustainable. But you were kind of flying the flag for that so early on. But I think that's often what we have to do. We have to stand up for what we believe in and be that
and set the trend.
Different. Absolutely. And be that different, which you definitely have. I mean, I know that when I first started talking about, like 11 years ago, I was teaching around mindset and universal laws, the law of attraction. And back then it was like, that's a bit out there, that's a bit woo-woo. Whereas again, it's that whole thing where people are so open to it now, the mindset training and sustainability and things like that. And I often, you know, when I'm teaching, it's like, you've got to have a purpose. And obviously your purpose and your passion is the sustainability side. And let's talk about that for a moment, because it has become very on trend, and which is great because it's in people's awareness. But let's say, for example, when I say in people's awareness, there's still so many that it's not in their awareness. So if you were to, let's say a salon was to come to you and say, look, give me advice for starting points. Like, maybe there's some things that they are not aware that they could be saving so much energy, etc. What would your starting advice?
Well, one of the things I've been working over on a seminar over the last over this lockdown, and one of the key things, you know, that I discovered doing my research, and I start with this just to open people's minds, because they do come to you still slightly reserved. Oh, you know, sustainability, what can we do? We can't really do anything, we can't afford it. There are over 46,000 hair salons in the UK, creating 4.5 million tons of waste a year. Now, if you Google what 4.5 million tons of waste looks like, it is horrific. So as part of my seminar, I show them that, and I show them what the waste is actually doing. You know, Plastic Island, I call it Plastic Island. It's a big, I forget how big it is now. I can't remember that fact, but it's over like 1 million hectares of plastic floating together. It's actually growing plants in the middle of the ocean. So that's where it's at. So what I say is, you've got to get your team engaged. My team are all over it now, just by showing them a simple few films. There's a great documentary on the BBC. You can get it on iPlayer, Drowning in Plastic. And you can maybe just start by looking at what plastic you're bringing into the salon. So that's your first. We swapped from serving in plastic bottles to a Brita filter. The other thing I always suggest is, don't try and do everything at once. You know, don't become consumed by it. We haven't, and I'm still not. The latest thing we've brought in is Vish. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it is counting how much color you mix and how much you throw away. And ours was quite good, but the average salon throws away 27% of color because it's mixed up too much. It goes down the bowl. That equates to about £3,000 a year. That's a lot of money. So that's just one area in itself you can look at. I'm actually looking at Green Salon Collective about taking the waste away and breaking it up. We do all of this, and we had an amnesty jar for colour waste. We did this about 5 years ago, and it was full. And so the whole team and I looked at it and went, wow. And, you know, I was guilty of it as well. So we actually had ours very low when I started working with Vish, because we'd already been doing that. But to see, you know, it's still at 6%, it's still a big cost. So it's just, you know, those are areas that are simple that save you money. How much are you washing your towels? You know, is it more affordable for you to be using an easy dry towel? How much is it costing you to run water? Sometimes I look at the team, this was years ago, not now, they would dare do it now. Why have you got the tap still running? You're not using the water. And so I told them what the water bill was, and we set a target to reduce it just by turning the tap off.
It's interesting because, like, often people think going green or going more eco-friendly is actually going to cost them more, where it's actually saving.
It's saving money. Yeah, it really is. And what I like to do is I like to get all my team on board. They come to me with the ideas now. And, you know, we sit down as a collective and we look at stuff. We look at, you know, issues that have been happening on the planet. You know, we look at the issues and I make them look at that. Otherwise they don't, you know, I like, oh, what do you think of the Galapagos Islands and things like that? And they're like, what? Because sometimes they miss that at school, and, you know, they come to you fresh and they've got these amazing brains that have just never been pushed. So, you know, little push here and there, and they come back to me now. Karine, do you think you should be doing that? I think, no. Actually, no.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and it's good because it makes me question myself, and I think, right, let's change that then. And it becomes their ideas. So, you know, I can't take the credit for all of it because it's the whole team.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's all aligned, and you know, this goes whether it's eco-friendly or whatever it is. If you've got a whole team that are all aligned with the same purpose, it's heavenly. It's just such an easier journey. It's so much easier and so much more pleasurable because everybody shares the same values. There's not that resistance of somebody wants to, someone doesn't, because you're all aligned together.
It's interesting as well, because one of my toughest ones, Simon doesn't mind me telling this story. He's been with me like 15 years. So he was right at the beginning of when I swapped over from a commercial brand to an ammonia-free brand, which 15 years ago, ammonia-free was just not heard of, you know. And he was like, oh, it doesn't work as well. It's not this. I said, no, you're just not using it right, you know. And then eventually he got used to it. He had no choice. And then he did the colour project with the fellowship. He come back in after the first seminar. I said, oh, it was brilliant. I'm never going back to colour with ammonia in it, though. It was horrible. I couldn't breathe. And I was like, oh, my God, Simon, you're saying this to me? So, you know, eventually change scares people, but eventually they get used to it. And if you give them all the positives, they understand as well.
Let's take this to this brings me to talking of being creative. And like you say, some people might think, well, if I go organic or if I go green with the colors and vegan colors, do they have the same coverage? And can I still be the same creative hairdresser? Are there limits, etc.? But obviously, obviously you can, and look at all the stuff that you've done and how you're creating, and it's still a huge part of what you do is your art side and your creative side and your artistic. I mean, you shoot, is it every year that you shoot and do a collection, or almost
except for last year? I know it is every year. It is every year. And I have been considering turning that back maybe, but now that I haven't done it for a year, I'm like, oh, I want to do it again. More for me. I do have a great story about that as well. I don't know, it was a few years ago. I can't remember the name of the collection. I've got COVID brain, I call it, because I just can't remember. I don't want to call it the other brain. So, but it was a bright yellow and I had a black piece in the front. And I work with Errol a lot, which you all know. So, and he said, "Shall I go get crazy colours to get the yellow?" I said, "No, I've got my organic colours. Will it work?" I said, I wouldn't be using it if it didn't work, you know. And, you know, you see the results in my collections. You get crisp, beautiful, vibrant colour. So people were scared of like, oh, well, I'm not going to get the results I need. You're only not going to get the results if you don't use the product the way that they ask you to use it. You know,
Right.
you can't slip into, I do it this way with this brand, so I'll do it this way with that brand, and it doesn't work. So,
Yeah, so education is key around like
yeah,
anything. It's
yeah.
absolutely key. Where do you get your inspiration for your collections?
Do you know, I'm nosy, so I'm looking around constantly. Each year it's slightly different. You know, some years I have a fascination in something, so it might be like my twisted linear collection. You know, I was looking at space at the time, and I was understanding, you know, how dark matter works and all sorts of things like that. So that's why, you know, I wanted to work. I tend to, and I've realised over the years, I look at things that collide a lot. I had another collection called Juxtaposition, and that's the one where I won Trend. Creative Head Trend Image of the Year. And I was looking at Rowena. She was such an amazing model with this long, dark hair. And I said, you know, how would you feel if I took this right back to it? And getting a model to do that is quite difficult. But she said, yeah, go on, let's have a go. And it's sort of clashing things that wouldn't quite work. So so each year it's different. I think don't be guided by what other people tell you. Look at what's out there. Look at what you're good at. You know, because a lot of people say to me, oh, you should be doing this or that. No, I like working with texture, or I like working with color, and do what suits you. I really believe.
Yeah, creating from the heart. So I will open to, I'm just going to let the guys know, I'm going to open to questions in a second. So please feel free to type in some questions for Karine, and I will ask the questions in a moment. So please, guys, just type in and ask your questions, and we will ask Karine. We'll have a bit of a Q&A at the end. But I just want to take you back to, let's go back to the business side again. So you've been 17 years in business as a salon owner, and you know, which also means, like you said, being through the last recession and then going through this just now with the COVID, etc. What are some key business lessons that you've learned along the way? So a couple of things that you've said so far is, of course, knowing your numbers, knowing your finances, also you know, having a team that's aligned with your values, and you know, being happy to stand out and be creative, etc. What else would you say? What other lessons have you learned along the way? A lot of the guys listening to this now are, you know, some of them are new businesses. Some of them are, you know, they've only been open. Some of them just opened before COVID, etc. So what are some lessons for not just people starting out, but also people who are maybe, you know, further down the line, but maybe just feel a bit lost, stagnant at the moment? You know, what are some business lessons that you've learned along the way from someone else who has been through the last recession as well?
I think business is difficult, and sometimes you get wrapped up, and I used to be guilty of it, of just worrying all night about everything, and you can't do that because firstly it's not good for your mindset. I think talk to people. The community is out there. You've got great organizations, you know, Creative Head, you've got the Fellowship, HA, they've all got platforms, you know, Pro Hair. Go to events. I know sometimes they can be expensive, but the networking and the talking you can do there is great. So be open to listen. That's personally. Never stop learning. Things change constantly, and don't be scared of it. Listen to your team. You might not agree with everything, but you need to listen to them. And one key thing I think over the last few years that my team have been with me a long time is we regularly sit down and talk about, firstly, how we're feeling, about how we can improve in the salon. So they take ownership. If they don't believe in what you're doing, then they're not gonna do it. So making them part of the decisions, I think, is really, really important. I mean, ultimately, you know where you want to go, but they will sometimes, or actually nearly all the time, give me some help. Don't worry about the things you can't change. So I have 2 lists in my life: things I can change and things I can't change. So the things that I can change, I do. And the things that I can't right now, like COVID, I can't worry about it. So I've used the time, I feel, wisely. Use your time wisely. But also you need to remember to make time. for, I'm very social, so I like to go out a lot. I like to travel a lot. So you can't actually say, sometimes I can't say, "Oh, you're going away again." So what's the point of working if I can't do what I want to do? And you need to get that balance. And I can hear some people going, "Well, that's all well and good, but I'm not earning the money yet." You will, and you still need to take that time off. You need rest, otherwise you're not going to be able to perform properly.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like it's actually quite the opposite happens. Once you start putting yourself first and you're following your own passion and your own purpose and doing your own thing, and you're, the money follows you after that, not you.
Yeah.
If you're chasing the money just gets faster.
It just gets further away.
Exactly. It's like, it's that universal law, isn't it? It's whatever you're trying to resist persists. Okay, so let's have a look. Just before, there's a couple of questions that have come in that we'll ask in a second. But just before we get to that, taking you back to the fellowship years, let's say there's somebody, someone that's listening to it, that's okay, someone who's listening to this just now who would love to do that, would love to sort of become president of the fellowship or any other kind of organization, while you are quietly talking in the background there.
Sorry.
Have a little drink and a little brew.
I think that's what caused it.
Yeah. If they're wanting to get into something like that, how would they go about it? Like, how did that journey start with you? And also, does it make a big difference to your career having a a position like that? What are the things that people would consider if they were wanting to go down that route?
It wasn't well, firstly, the reason I joined the fellowship was when I worked at Charles Worthington. They were really big members, and we did small shows and things for the fellowship. So I knew it was an organization that supported hairdressing. It was about creativity. Starting out in your own business, you need a platform if you want to go down that creative route, which I did. To how do I get on stage? How do I learn how to do a photo shoot? I'd never done my own photo shoot before. So I joined the fellowship and I went to the events and I spoke to people. So that's where the journey first started. And then they asked me to join the council and I thought, oh, why not? Why not? So I joined the council. I think it was about 2008, and I found, just from a business point of view, it was fantastic because you're sitting and you're planning and organizing, and it helped me structure. I went into business I did a few courses, but I was a manager at Charles Worthington, so I knew how to run a team. Running a business is a whole nother ball game, and I very quickly realized that I didn't know what I was doing. And I think talking to people within the fellowship really, really helped me. You had David Drew and Bruno and Errol and all these people running great businesses, and I got to chatting with Debbie G, and I really worked well together and helping each other, and Michelle Griffin. So there was a community, and I think a community is key for anything. I'm an organizer, and so when they asked me to be the chancellor, I rose to that. I loved it. I loved planning the big events. I loved, I just loved being part of a community. And maybe that comes from my dad, who was president of the Surf Lifesaving Association in Australia. So as kids, we grew up with my dad going off to the council meetings and talking publicly. And, we all had to train to rescue people. And that structure, I think, has been in me the whole time. Right. And then when I got nominated to be president, I was really nervous. I think I had that, what do they call it? The syndrome. Imposter syndrome. And I was like, oh my God. And then once I got into the role and started developing, I knew I could make change. And that I thought was really exciting. Getting women more recognized, getting the creative side, getting business more recognized. It was exciting, and I think the fellowship is such a good platform to learn from. And that's where my journey, I'd never intended to go there, but that's why I think be open to things, try them, even if I really didn't think I was ready for something like that, but I just didn't know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah saying girl power, inspirational women. Okay, so
Yeah.
we have a question here. I'm not sure who it is, guys, because remember it's saying at the moment Facebook user because we're using StreamYard. So just above this video here, you can give permission for a StreamYard to show your name. Do you have to skin test with your color brand? And if so, given the gap in time back to work, what skin test protocol will you have in place?
So yes, we do have to skin test, and it's all done through our computer system. When people have to have their skin test, we are really fortunate that we can send out a skin test, and we have two ways of sending it out. The color brand that I use, Organic Color Systems, have little sachets which are all recyclable, and we can send that to them. Or they used to give us a bottle that we refill for our client every time they came in, and they take that home and then they apply the skin test prior to coming in. So, and that is a really good question, because I think a lot of salons skimp on that. But what we did find after the last lockdown, that people were reacting more if they'd had COVID. So I don't know if there's any facts behind it or what it was, but we were noticing that when they were coming in, we could see that it wasn't an allergy, but you could see there was definitely a change in the skin with that. So please be really careful and make sure that you are check with your brands as to what you can actually do. But yeah, we either send it out to the client, because we're a destination salon, they can't come in and do it, which is a disadvantage for us. So we had to find another way. And if your product company isn't allowing you, or it doesn't have something in place, they should, and you should be pushing them on it.
Perfect. And we have Caroline here asking, can you please tell us some good green color companies worth looking at? Good coverage, I'm not sure what's that saying, into
blendable colors.
Blendable colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so her mind is blown when she's looking. So any recommendations there for Caroline?
Well, a lot of companies, and I think this is really sad, and I have to smile when they do it to me. They'll come at you, I'm ethical, we're sustainable, we're this, we're that, the other. Okay, so why is your brand sustainable, ethical? Vegan. Most brands are vegan. They just don't know it. What you need to be looking at is where are they growing their ingredients? Where is it being produced? How far is it traveling? Does it contain ammonia? Are there hidden ingredients in there? Are they looking at being B Corp, which I think is really key for me at the moment? I'm looking at companies that are working towards either being B Corp or are B Corp certified. And if you don't know what that is, please go have a look, because it's not just about sustainability in ingredients, it's about sustainability in how you grow products, who's it supporting, are people being paid fairly? It's all down that line. And so when a company sits there and says we're all of this, if you throw a few questions at them, just read through B Corp's guidelines, then if they can't answer that, they're not that ethical. And there are some really great companies out there, but they're the key things that I would be looking for. Yeah.
And Haley's asking as well, what she's saying is there's so many ranges of color products available, and without building up a mass of different ranges, what's the best way to go about changing? So is it going to reps, wholesalers? Who's best to talk to? So
I would do your own research first. That's how I got into Organic Color Systems. This was 15 years ago. What I did was my client, I hadn't even planned on changing color brands. What I did was she asked me to look at it, and my natural reaction was, it's not going to work. And then I started researching. I was horrified what actually went into color, and it's all online now. 15 years ago, you had to dig a bit deeper. So you want to look at what each brand should be putting a list of ingredients, and then they should be allowing you to see where they've sourced that ingredient. So, if it's being dug out of a mine by children in India, then you don't want to go anywhere near that product. And be careful. People will put on there cruelty-free, the bunny rabbits, all of that, which are great accolades, but how did they get that? Ask a deeper question. But I do look at brands that, well, we work with recycling. We try and, you know, get our ingredients close to home. We pay fair wages. They're all the things that you should be looking at. Test the brand out. You call them. Don't let them call you, because I find sometimes that you'll just be bombarded, and they'll all have a great story to tell. And if they're very good at sales, they'll be able to sell you it really, really well. If anyone wants to know what questions to ask, please, you know, you can drop me an email, and I will. I'll get a list of answers for or questions that are good. But I think the key ones: how far is the product traveling? Does it contain ammonia? What support for training are you going to get? I think that's really important as well. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, do they support fair trade, B Corp, cruelty free, the bunny rabbits? So all of those things. And how's the packaging being delivered? How's it being delivered to you? Is it coming in a load of plastic, which I send back to companies when they do that to me? And or, you know, or are they packing it in corn waste and all of that? I think, I know it sounds like a lot to ask, but if you are thinking of swapping, spend the time. Don't just swap straight away. Spend the time to just Google, you know, there's all the brands out there. Maybe look at what distributors have, look at what our main key brands are, and look at the companies that you think are going to deliver the right thing for you.
Yeah, and I think, as you said earlier, Karine, it's you know, step by step, because it can be a bit, like you say, it can seem overwhelming at first. Oh, crikey, I've got so much going on, and then I've got to go and research all this stuff. But it's step by step. And also, is there, for example, I know that you've said that they can reach out and DM you, but also, is there a website or a resource that you go to and search a lot? Is there like one great destination place that they will find out quite a bit, or not? Is it really?
No. I call it my yeah, my internet journeys. I go off on journeys. And so, you know, did you just say what's my next project? Sorry.
No, I'm saying that'll be your next project.
Next project, yeah. It's already when I'm like, maybe, yes, maybe don't start me on something else. I think, you know, we have so much information now out there, and so many people. There's some really fantastic hairdressers out there that are working towards being more sustainable and greener, and have a look at those companies, but question everything. You know, when I started on the plastic journey, it was one thing that set me off, and I thought, oh God, you know. And then I've gone on a journey. So turning the tide on plastic, she was one of our clients, Lucy, or she is one of our clients, Lucy Siegel, and she's written a book called Turning the Tide on Plastic, and she's been a client of ours since we swapped to organic. She works for she used to present on the One Show, and she writes for the Observer. She's got this great book, and that's just one area that we looked at, you know, a few years ago. Your clients will tell you too, you know, they're all for giving you ideas. Once I start talking about things, there's a product that I put into the salon, and she was like, you know, that contains palm oil. And I was like, oh my God, you know, you research palm oil. It's one of the most devastating products on the planet, because of how much of the Amazon it's wiping out. So I didn't know that. So it's like, right, well then I just don't get that again. And don't beat yourself up if you've got it wrong, because I get things wrong all the time. And when somebody pulls me on it, then I will actually go, wow, okay, I need to look into that a little bit further. And that's fine, because we're learning.
Because you don't know what you don't know. It's, you know.
Exactly. There's a great Professor Denise McAdam from Southampton University. She set up a little a sustainable journey. It's how we got certified as London's first sustainable salon, and all salons can do that, and you can go through, and these are just tiny little steps that you can take. So I think if you put it into certified sustainable salons, it should come up. It was done by Southampton University, and it's like a virtual game you can go through, just at little areas that you can change. And we work with her, and there's a few others hairdressers that work with her and Vec to get to go on that journey through a salon. And it's simple, it's easy, and it makes you just look at little changes you can do in your salon.
That's a great resource, great advice. Oh, Karine, thank you so much. It's been lovely having you here today and finding out more about your journey. Where can people reach out to you? What projects have you got coming up? Anything you'd like to share? I know you've said DM. Just anything else that you'd like to share while you're here? Because I'm sure that there'll be people listening that have lots of questions for you.
Message me, probably email me is the easiest, because I get a bit lost in direct messages. Sometimes I forget to look. But if you email me, just set appointments at Karine Jackson, go on our website, and then I can answer your questions. And my team can even answer if I'm not around as well, because they have all the answers. My next project is working on salons working more sustainably and helping them through the process and taking the scariness out of it. So I've been working on a seminar that hopefully we're going to get launched soon, so that we can help our industry and start to become more leaders rather than followers of the sustainable world, and start looking at ourselves first, and then we can change everything else. So yeah, that is my passion.
I think that's definitely come through today, is you're leading by example in what you do in many areas, not just the sustainability, but you've proved it in your career up until now. I just have one question actually before if you have time, just before we drop off. There is something that's come to mind, and that is from the business side of it. Have you found that, obviously you must have clients that have been with you for a long time that have seen you go on this journey, but you must attract clients that they're attracted to you because of the sustainability side.
Yeah. If you look, you made a point earlier about, getting your name out there, and we have great PR. So Sally really looks after us. And when I say to Sally, I wanted to be more sustainable. I don't want to sell to just our industry. I need to get it out there. And so I did little features on what we were changing in the salon, and people Google that now. It wasn't as common before, but when you look at your Google search out there, just organic coloring, or natural brands, sustainable hairdressing, people are Googling these words. We do a perm, but it's organic, so we have to work differently with it. So we give them all the information that we can. And because we are a destination salon, during lockdown, and we've had more consultations than ever. I've actually had one of my team members working full time doing consultations, which has been fantastic, because they've had time to Google, and this looks interesting. Just like we research what we're going to change in the salon, they're researching who's changing it. And never underestimate how many people are actually changing it.
Oh, 100%. People are, like you say, they've got time on their hands. They're out there Googling more than ever. And, you could have a blog that you've written 3 years ago, 10 years ago, that they're finding now, which is brilliant. I've loved our chat today. Thank you so much for coming on, Karine. And you mentioned PR, Gloss Communications, Sally Learmouth, also a reference, guys, if you're interested in PR, who's also my PR as well. You can reach out to Sally. I'm sure she'll be happy to speak to you on that as well. And yeah, thank you so much, Karine. And everybody is just sort of coming in and saying thank you, great advice, thank you. They're all just saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Caroline, for having me. I love it. I get so passionate when I talk about it. And thank you to everyone who came to listen. It was amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Karine. Take care.
Bye.